And welcome into the Believe It or Not Week 15 NFL recap. We still have some games tonight, which are actually very fun. That's got guys like Jefferson and Bowers and things of that nature. But we're not going to talk about those games. We are here, a recap show. We're talking about Sunday and the fun stuff that has happened this past weekend. We'll get into it. Oh boy, were there some doozies on both sides of the ball. Let me tell you what. It is myself, Jesse Moore, hashtag just put Mike Evans in the Hall of Fame, and Jerry Show, hashtag Mike Evans, I guess, right? Yeah, so could have done Devontae Adams, but there's been this nonstop talk of Mike Evans the past 5 years about, is he a Hall of Famer, is he not? And I'm like, I don't know, man. He's going to find his way in there. He's already got over 100 touchdowns. It's all fun stuff. But yeah, him and Baker, really nice. Shocker, these old, good wide receivers doing their thing, him and Adams. If you had those guys and you were not on a bye, as Jeremy and I were talking about off screen, where we had these guys on buys and we're just like, didn't mean nothing. I appreciate it. It was nice to see. It's a good flex on the league, but it might help the advance. So, it's what it is. But how you doing, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, thankfully, the team where I benched Mike Evans for Amari Cooper, what the hell? But I ran into the Goff Amon-Ra stack. So that was one of the down bad calls, but apparently it won't matter at all because I got crushed in that league, a first place team anyway. Saquon did nothing. Mixon did nothing. Just brutal. Fantasy going to get you sometimes. But because you're all Mike Evans on the hashtag, I changed my hashtag. Tay-Tay is the only Tay-Tay. We got Tay Adams crushing. We can get Taylor Swift out of here. We got the real Tay-Tay over in New York.
So funny. Yeah, you saw, we'll talk about the game in a second. You saw, like, on the sideline, Garrett Wilson was pissed because he had a one-on-one. He's like, just throw the fade. And if I'm Rodgers and Adams, I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, we're going nuclear. Like, bro, like, it's fine. It is what it is. We talked about this multiple times where, Devontae Adams, the wide receiver one in New York. That's the case. But let's jump into these fun games, shall we? Talk about them. If y'all remember, there was a game on Thursday, which was about as bad of a fantasy game as you can get. There was no production. If you went with the Cooper Kupp route for the Los Angeles Rams, I am sorry. You put up a bagel. It did not go well. We talked about maybe possibly surviving. If you hit some of these monster performances, you went up against Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or those wide receivers we mentioned, a couple of these running backs, like probably underway out this week. So how are you feeling about the Rams in general and just like Cooper Kupp? I mean, it's obviously Puka Nacua is by far their best player, but are you okay with Kyron and those guys? Like, what's your thought process with the Rams?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the Rams. I think this is anomalous. They faced there are some defenses that are completely doing 180s here the last couple of weeks. We saw Tampa Bay absolutely destroy the Chargers out of nowhere. Like, I know the Chargers haven't been a super fearsome unit since J.K. Dobbins went down. That rush attack is struggling, but we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay defense and what they did to this Chargers, because they did historic things to the Chargers offense this past week. But yeah, there are defenses that are doing 180s, and one of those defenses is San Francisco, whether Devondre Campbell wants to play for them or not. At least the defense is coming around and looking decent, and they were able to hold the Rams to just 12 points. The problem is the 49ers are absolute garbage, and also the Rams are another one of those defenses that have done a 180. They've looked pretty good the last couple of weeks, even though they gave up a crap ton of points to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are just a team that scores on everybody. So, these teams kind of all of a sudden have a pass rush. All of a sudden they feel a little bit better on the back end. And they are able to, do some things that they weren't able to do earlier in the year. So, yeah, a 12-6 Rams over Niners victory. We all had that on our bingo cards, right?
Yes, we did. We were talking about this game previously. We were actually excited for this game, right? We're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a good fantasy game. Brock's top 10. We got Stafford keeping the top 10 rankings. I mean, Guerendo and Kyron were fine for you, and I know there's a lot of issue with Guerendo and Kyron, and we can kind of pivot to the 49ers off of the Rams. But really, the one guy that really stood out was Puka Nacua, because he had 7 for 97. Nobody else really on the Rams did much of anything. Kyron was fine. Outside of that, it's just kind of just one of those games. Maybe you started Cardi. You know what? He had 4 field goals for you. That works, and those leagues have kickers. As we talk about the 49ers, I think we can hit on Deebo Samuel just because it has been a very bad year for Deebo Samuel. There was a massive squeaky wheel narrative with Deebo Samuel, and the problem, unlike certain guys with squeaky wheels, they're actually really good players right now. Deebo Samuel is not that player. He's not earning targets. He's not really a big part of the offense. So I think we have this like kind of thought process of Deebo, and I don't think he's that. He hasn't been this player's role this year. I don't know if it's the injury or what it is, but this entire season, similar to Amari Cooper, just has not been good for him. Now they're both kind of aging out. They're getting up there, kind of like on their post-prime ages. I think Deebo's a year younger than Cooper, if I know that correctly. He's he's 28. So yeah, he's still kind of in his prime window, but it's clear they value Juwan Jennings more wide receiver. Like he's by far their high target earner, then they had Garendo, and then it's really George Kittle, right? Those are like the kind of the guys that offense rolls through. If you have Deebo Samuel, what do you do from this point moving forward? Can you even play him in lineups moving forward?
No, you have to bench him, and you have to hope that he figures it out and turns the corner next year. But like you said, he's 28 years old. He's on the wrong side of, developing, right? He's hitting his prime now. And if this is his prime, we've got some trouble. But look, there's lots going on with the San Francisco offense. Obviously, CMC is not there, but Brock Purdy had an absolutely horrific game, which is really the issue. Listen to this. George Kittle, 7 targets, just 4 receptions. Deebo, 7 targets, just 3 receptions. Ricky Pearsall, 4 targets, just 1 reception. Juwan Jennings, 9 targets, just 2 receptions. All of that put together does not mean that there is an issue with the wide receivers. There's an issue with the quarterback, and by extension, there's certainly an issue with the offensive line. We know they haven't been healthy. We know they're dealing with all of these sort of uncertainties, and LA has developed a pass rush recently. All those factors came together. 49ers scored 6 points in this game. It was just a terrible game all around. Brock Purdy, less than 50% completion percentage. When have we ever said that? I don't know if we've ever said that in Brock Purdy's career.
Yeah, the Brock Purdy stuff is like in weather games, he has not played well. And like where it's raining, it's bad weather and stuff. I didn't really pay attention to the weather. That was my mistake with this game, but that kind of crept up on everybody. And you noticed the game, like the weather was a decent amount of wind, but the rain was continually throughout. And like that's kind of a San Francisco thing where it's very wet in that area. And a lot of times they have these type of games. So Brock Purdy late in the year, depending on the weather, because he has quote unquote small hands for an NFL quarterback, it kind of leads to these issues. So it could be a thing where you have to pay attention to moving forward. If it's a bad weather game, might not want to play Purdy. Like it just doesn't live up to it like some of these bigger, stronger arm quarterbacks. It is what it is. But
I'm not sure if I can find it, who it comes from, but there was a report that was released earlier that said that the 49ers were all set and ready to give Brock Purdy the bag and sign him to a contract. And now this game has given them pause. But I think it was like, a Jake Glazer or some sort of like reputable account reporting that. So they're going to want to see what's going on with Purdy and if he can bounce back from this. But yeah, 49ers 6-8. Unlikely at this point, although nobody wants to win that division. So maybe they can still creep in and win it. I think probably the Rams are on top now at 8-6. It's just a mess.
They have a slight edge on the Seahawks, unfortunately, because we'll get to my Seahawks later. But yeah, that line's a problem, folks. Hey, Jamie, it's nice to see you again. The one thing with Purdy is he still has 1 year left, but yeah, they don't want to go into like the 2025 without a contract done. Yeah. I'm assuming they're going to get something. This 49ers team is going to change significantly because that contract is going to be extremely expensive. So they're going to kind of have to rework some of these guys. So like somebody like one of Kiddo, CMC, Deebo, probably likely not going to be on the team long term. So we'll see how it goes with those guys. I would keep Kittle. He's by far don't do him. Get rid of anybody else. Don't get rid of Kittle. Let's jump into our next game. I think it's a good one to talk about. Kansas City, Cleveland. Oh boy. The Jameis Winston experience did not go very well. Kansas City was 21-7. Mahomes was okay for you in this game. And what I kind of want to talk about is the whole Noah Gray, Travis Kelce thing, because he is capping the hell out of the Travis Kelce ceiling. Like he's still good. Like he had 4 for 8 for 27. It's not a great game. He gave you 6 fantasy points. Noah Gray with 5 more receptions. We've talked about him running over 50% of routes. He's been on the field for like 50% of snaps. He's heavily involved in this Chiefs offense, and this addition of this Chiefs offense, once again, just lacks explosive plays. Like they cannot generate big plays. So they're just marching down the field slowly. It's like an old school West Coast style offense, right? Where they're doing that play after play after play, the drive clock. Mahomes only threw for 159 yards. If you have Kelce, are you at all worried seeing this like basically throughout the entire season with Noah Gray, where he has played a significant role and it's kind of like taking a little bit of the shine off of Kelce this year?
Yeah, it's terrible. And I think the issue was not Noah Gray for Travis Kelce. The issue was always going to be, we saw it in the first few games, was going to be whatever the heck the guy's name is. Why can't I think of his name? The guy who got injured and out for the year, Kansas City. I'm terrible with names, by the way, in case you didn't.
Oh, Hollywood Brown?
No, the good receiver in Kansas City.
I want to blank on somebody. Is there who am I blanking? I don't know. I'm blanking on
slot guy, the main guy, the number 1 wide receiver, Kansas City, who got injured, and everybody's darling, second-year guy.
Rashee Rice. Jesus, it's been so long. Yeah, sorry, it's been so long. I had completely
exactly. I forgot the
damn
guy's name. But here's the thing: is it was always going to be the Rashee Rice issue for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's first 3 games. I forget when Rice went out. Was it week 2 or week 3? Kelce's first 3 games, 4, 3, and 5 targets. He was tight end 14, 46, and 19. Rashee goes out and all of a sudden he becomes Mr. Necessary. So there was always a Travis Kelce issue. It's not that Noah Gray took anything away. But Noah Gray is just kind of another target who happens to be a little bit more open than Travis Kelce, just like everybody else on this damn team. Who led the team in targets? Xavier Worthy. It's not because Xavier Worthy is excellent. I love Xavier Worthy as a prospect. He's got a lot of room to grow. But it's also because Xavier Worthy is kind of open. He's a fast, speedy guy. And if you put the ball in his hands, good things happen. They proved that this past week. But this Kansas City team sucks on offense. It's really upsetting. Thankfully, they can put it together on defense. Unfortunately, I don't think they can do it against better teams. I don't know how they hung in there like they did against Buffalo a few weeks back. But it's getting really scary. Yeah, they're going to have a first-round bye. And then second round, they're going to be bye-bye from the playoffs, like it's over for this team. I don't see how they repeat. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's like matchup based for them. Like their EPA and stuff is not bad. It's still top 10 in the NFL. It's just they severely lack those explosive elements like you talk about. So they have to have these 10, 12 play drives like consistently to get these touchdowns to the nature. The interesting thing for Kelce, he's averaging 8 targets a game. So he's going to be pushing 140 targets this year. But if you look at his yards per reception, it's like 8. This is like a career low, basically. He's been at like 10 and 12 his entire career. He's at 8. And to your point on the whole Rashee Rice thing, like that was the issue. They were in the same area of the field. The difference is Rashee Rice gives you that yak and explosive development with that, and Kelce does not. So it's like this was similar to what we were talking about with like Laporta and Jameson Williams, where like, why give it to Laporta when you could give to Jameson Williams, a guy that's a freak, right? So now Laporta's come on stronger. He's obviously a younger player. He's not 35 years old. So like Kelce's on his declines to that nature. But this offense just severely lacks it, and that's where Xavier Worthy was supposed to come in. Now imagine instead if they got Xavier Worthy, they wouldn't got Brian Thomas Jr., how this offense would look so different. Obviously, they would have had to trade it up, but like they were right in that range where they could have made a deal to get him. What they did, they went and traded with Buffalo and got Xavier Worthy, and Buffalo probably like, all right, cool, thanks. Like we got Keon Coleman, looks fine. It worked out well for us. But if you remember back after week 1, everyone's like, why would they let the Chiefs do that? Xavier Worthy's going to be incredible. Has turned out that way for him. So it's just, it's frustrating for Mahomes, that offense, the way they have structured this design. And I think we can talk about Pacheco for a second. Split the carries right down the middle. They both had 13 behind, which that was the thing I was not sure how it was going to go. I thought they were going to give Pacheco more work in this game. Like, they were going to build it up, but they're like, nope, still in 30%, like 37% snap share. So they're clearly just trying to keep him, you talked about this specifically, trying to keep him healthy, fresh for the end of the season in the playoffs. And maybe they unleash him in the playoffs in those games because, like, I like Kareem Hunt, but, like, let's be real. He's not giving you any explosive plays. He was better on, like, a per-carry basis than the game against Cleveland, which is actually pretty surprising. But overall, I think the one takeaway for the Chiefs offense is like pay attention to Xavier Worthy, like 6 for 11. That's solid. Like he was by far their best fantasy player. If that continues, they have some games coming up against Houston and Pittsburgh. Not great ideal matchups, but him being in the slot gives him a chance. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Cleveland.
Just also real quick on Pirine out there for 25% of snaps. That hasn't. He hasn't been out there for less than 25% of snaps in the last month. He's being used in the passing game. That comes to fruition. He's obviously not fantasy relevant, but he takes away from these other guys, especially Pacheco in the passing game. I don't know if you can trust Pacheco moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's going to be teams because there's a lot of injuries. We're talking about one coming up specifically that need running backs. But yeah, I'm with you. Like it's going to be a little bit tough for them. For Cleveland, Nick Chubb's pretty much done. Like he broke a bone in his foot. You weren't starting him anyway, but this does give you some potential runway for Jerome Ford since he's going to get more work and then moving forward, where he's basically going to be the guy in the backfield. With this offense, now it would come with the caveat of Jameis Winston get benched in this game. I don't know if he's their starter long term. They said it's like potentially he could still be starting. We don't want to do the freaking DTR, like that type of nonsense experience. Do not do that to us, Cleveland. Just let us ride the Jameis Winston roller coaster. We'll do that.
Please.
Jerry Jeudy, though, Jerry Jeudy had 14 targets once again. He's been a monster with Jameis Winston. So as long as it happens for Judy. Unfortunately, we did not get our Njoku breakout because he missed this game. Jordan Akins filled in. Some of those used that streamed Akins, yeah, it did not go well. It was the opposite of Brenton Strange experience. It did not go well. Sometimes that happens when you back up tight ends. For Judy and Ford, if Winston is the quarterback moving forward, how are you feeling about the offense rest of the season? Are you just rocking and rolling those guys?
Yeah, I love it. I fire him up, and assuming Njoku's out there as well, you fire him up. If it's Winston, if it's DTR, like you said, it's a problem. I think you still fire up Ford in most cases, but you probably do not have the highest of expectations for him if DTR is back there. If Jameis is and he's slinging it, the defenses have to respect the pass. They want to because they want to get those 3 picks a game Jameis is serving up. And if that's the case, look, the Browns are 3-11. They're an absolute dumpster fire. Jameis Winston, unfortunately, as much as we love him for fantasy, is not a reality starting quarterback. He just cannot protect the football. It's not in his DNA. That's fine. He's fun.
Yes,
he's a good player. He's a very, very good backup NFL quarterback because he can come in and get it done for 1 or 2 games. But also, on the other hand, that as an NFL team, if you're relying on your backup to take you to the promised land, that's happened maybe 4 times in NFL history. So, look, it's not going to be Jameis. So you ride it out. You have the fun, and you go ahead and you draft a quarterback because this team desperately needs one.
Well, that's the thing. There was a report that came out with Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson. They're saying he's probably the starting quarterback next year, 2025. Then there was some mixed reporting from other reporters about it, where it's they're going to give him a shot, and the wording of it from I think Mary Kay Abbott's her name, the Cleveland reporter. She made it sound like he has to earn the job, which makes a hell of a lot of sense. Don't just give him the job because he's been the worst quarterback in the NFL. I will say quickly for Ford, you fire him up as RB2. That sucks. You had him and it didn't hit because he had 18 points in the game, Jamie. Yeah, sometimes that goes that way.
Tough.
It'd be like that sometimes, right? Let's go to Cincinnati and Tennessee. And holy hell, this Cincinnati offense is just a juggernaut. Chase Brown is our 0 RB, Lord and Savior. If you have Chase Brown and you had him on the 0 RB team, this is the ideal run out of what you want because he's basically the RB2. Since the intro to Zach Moss, Joe Burrow's RB quarterback 2. Freaking T. Higgins, Jamar Chase are both wide receiver 1s. The only thing they're missing really is a tight end. And we don't care. We got 4 guys doing really, really good things with this offense in general. I mean, there's not really too much that need to be said. We were talking about this when he first took over the job. You're going to push him pretty high. I think rest of the season, he's a top, even in bad matchups, top 3 running back rest of the season, just because he gets all of the work. He's super efficient. He's explosive. Just another 28 total opportunities. You get that. That's just, it's money. I don't think we need to sing his percentages too much. Just money.
No,
so good. It's glorious.
Yeah. The only thing we said is this is CMC level workload that we were hoping for. Really, in the last 6 games, he's achieved that, averaging somewhere around 6 targets a game in addition to his roughly almost 20 carries a game. So Chase Brown is absolutely balling for you. He's getting there on volume. He's also getting there on explosion and efficiency. In his last 6 games, half PPR, RB 5-4, 10-10, 6-4. He hasn't been an RB2 in that span. So obviously you ride him against Cleveland next week. I don't care. They limited Pacheco and Hunt. Who cares? You fire up Chase Brown. He gets there in the receiving game. And then Denver to cap it out. I don't care.
Don't care.
The schedule's not good. Don't care.
Yeah, he's since week 9, he jumped over the 80% threshold. He hasn't been below it. He's averaged 25 opportunities a game in that span, and he's just been a monster. So that shows you how they feel about him. They talked about at the beginning of the year when it was Zach Moss, Chase Brown. We predicted this wrongly. We were like, oh yeah, Zach Moss, come on, let's do it. Should have gone with the young explosive guy. That was that makes a hell of a lot more sense when we predict on it now. But yeah, this offense is just amazing. You know what you have with these guys. If you're starting them, you're starting the guys you're starting. There's not really anyone you're playing outside of that. Yeah. For Tennessee, Tony Pollard. Yeah, not great for our boy Tony Pollard. It's rough.
Damn.
Yeah. This is a good comment from JB about this. Yeah. It's rough. The problem is that money situation. I don't know what they're gonna do, but yeah, we're seeing Mac Jones do some interesting things. You're a guy Tony Pollard who we were excited for. The problem with this is he got a little bit injured, and Spears got all of the receiving work, and Spears went nuclear in the receiving game, which is what he's been in the entire career. Really, really good NFL wide receiver out of the backfield. He did good. Rudolph came in for a backup and actually played pretty well. I mean, he had an interception, but he had 209 yards like that. So overall, this offense did some good things against the Cincinnati defense because it's that bad. Unfortunately, Calvin Ridley only had 5 targets, so I don't know what the hell happened with Calvin Ridley in this game. We were hopeful for it. It did not go in. But, like, I think with Pollard, the snap share was, 44%? You get Indy and Jacksonville the next 2 games. It should be really good. The problem is the offense is so bad. Like, they may be in negative game scripts once again. If that's the case, like, they could be doing the Tajay Spears thing, right? So it's going to be tough for him. I'm excited. Like, I think you're going to fire him up if you have him. But, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Pollard. Where are you kind of at with Pollard for the rest of the final 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it really depends on the injury and what we decide. But Jacksonville's been better. But Indy and Jacksonville is, a bit scary in terms of what Pollard should be able to do. The problem is if he's not healthy, like you said, they give it to Tajay. Tajay proved that, he's useful in the pass game. The problem is, number one, Will Levis was benched in this game, right?
Yes.
So Mason Rudolph came in and he was check down Charlie all the time to Tajay Spears because I don't know if he's scared. I don't know if he's getting some sort of pass rush here. Hubbard was out in this game. He caught a touchdown in like the second quarter, and then he was injured and done for the game. And so it's like, how is this team even generating a pass rush? It was just kind of a mess. And so I really think that, look, is Mason Rudolph starting? Fine. Are they going to use Tajay in the receiving game? Fine. Tony Pollard still had 17 carries in this game. So if he's good to go, he's going to be good to go. He scored a touchdown, 17 carries, and still was just an RB25, so an RB3 on the week. Tajay and RB5 have PPR, 6 of 7 in the receiving game for 87 and a touchdown. Another touchdown on the ground, sniped from Tony Pollard. Damn, there was nothing going into this game that indicated that Tajay would be used like this. But with the injury and the benching of Will Levis, it is what it is. If Pollard's healthy, I'm firing him up, but damn, I don't know if you can trust Tajay. I don't think you can.
Yeah, it's really tough to trust Tajay. Tajay, this is why I like Tajay so much, is because he's such a good receiver. Now, the thing is, they're just the one thing that works for Tennessee the entire season has been the ground game with Pollard, so they've kind of just focused on that. But overall, you see these running backs who don't have the high-end receiving range of outcomes. They can be a little bit game script dependent, or they shift from then. We'll shift to the Washington game and Brian Robinson. The same thing happened. Brian Robinson had 21 carries in this game, but he only gave you 11 fantasy points because he did not get there fully. So this is the issue a little bit with these guys. I thought he'd be a little bit more involved in the receiving game, but he basically had every opportunity on the backfield. The one thing about this game is this game was weird. Washington kind of just held it throughout. New Orleans drove down. They almost won it on a 2-point conversion. I thought they were going to kick an extra point and go for 2. They said, screw it, we'll go for 2, go win. They did not get it. But our boy, Mr. Terry McLaurin, F1, yeah, he's my dream car. Growing up, the McLaren F1 was my favorite car as a kid. And I was like, you know what? You're doing good things, Terry McLaurin. He is the top place. He's top 5 wide receiver. Yeah, he's wide receiver 5 on the season. Finally coming to fruition, 7 receptions, 10 targets. Just consistently been one of the better fantasy options this year. And he's got Philadelphia, Atlanta coming up. It's not great matchups, but you got top 12 wide receiver rest of the season. So if you drafted him, you got the nice one. It's Jane Daniels. It's awesome.
Yeah. The only problem with Philly is that they played Philly. Washington did in week 11. Terry had 2 targets, 1 reception, 10 yards, and did not score. He was the wide receiver 90 on the week and half PPR. I don't think it's going to be that crazy, but obviously if there's, when Philly has just one guy to focus on, Philly tends to be able to shut down that one guy and they can double him. And that's what this offense is, especially with Zach Ertz probably not going to play next week with that concussion. So we'll see what happens there. Atlanta, fire him up in week 17, but it's going to be one of those situations in week 16 where you're playing Terry. You're expecting he's not going to get 1.5 point half PPR points. But you're looking for production elsewhere in your lineup. So Terry's had a great run out. He had an amazing game. New Orleans is not good on defense, but I am concerned about this Philadelphia matchup in week 16. And this is why in most cases playing the matchup is really important in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, you'll fire Jay Daniels up. The rest of them are very much TBD. And you're in a semifinal matchup, right? So you should have very good running backs. You don't have to fire or wide receivers. You don't have to fire all these guys. Brad Robinson's very RB3 probably in this game. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. You saw Pittsburgh against Philadelphia. They could not do much of anything.
She did nothing.
The loss of Noah Brown really hurts these wide receiver room because they don't have anyone else. They're rolling out Jameson Crowder in the year 2024. Come on, what's going on here, right? So they really need a secondary wide receiver. They can't have it, man. There's nobody there. It's It's rough,
If,
unfortunately.
if only they had a guy like Jahan Dotson. If only they had a guy like that.
Out. Yeah, is he even getting snaps with Philadelphia? Like, I don't know. He's just been benched.
No, not really.
It's so bad. Right?
You know, he's going to go off next week. He's just set to go off next week. We'll see.
I'll probably watch him have like 3 touchdowns. It's like, oh, I'm back, baby. Yeah, that first round pick did not pan out. Similar to my boy Treylon Burks. But we don't got to get into that. Let's talk about the fantasy wasteland. It is New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara, groin injury. I'm assuming he's just going to be done. That groin looks rough. Yeah, like the thing about Kamara is like he's still volume is fine. Like he still gave you 17 fantasy points in this game because like he got a receiving touchdown in this game. He gave you 4 receptions, 58 yards, but like only 5 carries. He came out of the game. They went to Kendre Miller, and Kendre Miller is fine on the ground, but he's not much of a receiver. The wide receivers are just this might be the worst wide receiver core in the NFL. Like, and there are some bad ones, but like we're talking about Dante Pettis, freaking Kevin Austin, Cedric Wilson. Like it's gross. And MVS had 7 targets, but when Rattler and Haener are your quarterbacks, like they went to Haener, he was awful. They went to Rattler, he kind of gave him a spark the second half where he came back and read them. So I guess they're going to go with Rattler, but it might be the worst fantasy offense in the NFL right now, which says a lot. So I don't think you can start anybody on the Saints. To tell the truth, I don't know who you would start.
I agree, and I'm trying to even remember the guys. Oh yeah, here we go. So obviously Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, 2 of the premier ascending young talents at wide receiver, both done. Remember A.T. Perry and Mason Tipton? Remember those guys? Yeah. Barely, because they were blip on the radar, but those were wide receivers 3 and 4 on this squad. They're out for the season. So it's like, Taysom was out there running a crap ton of routes. Oh, he's been out for the season. Alvin Kamara now probably out for the season. The guys they are rolling with, and Derek Carr probably out for the season. The guys they're rolling with, it just makes it kind of impossible to trust anything that this team is doing. In the last 2 weeks, you get Green Bay and you get Vegas in the last fantasy championship. You're going to want to roll out Kendre. You're going to think about MBS, Jawan Johnson. I can't do it against Green Bay. Probably can't do it against Vegas if you make it that far. You give up. And you just go to another team and look for other production. I can't believe this team almost won the damn game. I also can't believe they called that play against Dan Quinn with a rookie quarterback and only ran 2 guys out on the route. Like, it was so stupid. What are you going to do?
Yeah, they were a little bit in their bag at that point. They were filling themselves because Rattler was playing really well, like down the stretch for them.
Yeah, he did
doing what Haener could not. So we'll see. Rattler's been very up or down this season. He started out first half of that game was good, then he's kind of fallen off and came back. So we'll see. In relief, they're gonna have some time to prepare for him. So I'm not super excited about him in that offense. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Let's go to another just awful game. Baltimore really just put the clamps on the Giants. Now, I will say we kind of have a Derrick Henry problem the last few weeks because he's not doing much of anything as far as touchdowns. The last 2 weeks, he's had no touchdowns, and he had 140 yards, but the fact he didn't get a touchdown, it's only 14 points. Last week, he had 82 yards, no touchdowns. Now, he did have a receiving game, but he hasn't had a 20-point game since like week 9. So it's been a lot of just RB2, low-end RB2 performances. In this game, 14 for 67. This is kind of the Derrick Henry thing in a game that they won by 21 points. Like, you got the Derrick Henry run out, and it's not going well. We have 2 more games the rest of the season. Henry gets, where do they got the next weeks? They have Pittsburgh and Houston, so the Pittsburgh matchup's going to be tough. The Houston matchup, they could do all right. I mean, you're going to be firing up Derrick Henry. Are you just lowering expectations for him the next few weeks as Lamar goes on his 3rd straight MVP heater for this offense? Because, my goodness, Lamar's on fire right now.
I think you probably have to. I mean, that's the thing is like, between Justice Hill and Rashad Bateman just going off whenever Lamar wants to feed them the ball because they're open. Like you said, he's just in his bag. He doesn't give a crap who gets the ball. He's just like whipping it around, running at will. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see. He's an incredible talent, but this is the problem you run into sometimes when these guys are too elite. This is like I'm not comparing them by any means, but this is a Drake Maye situation, which we'll talk about later, where like these rushing quarterbacks can get home for you point wise, but they provide no value to anyone else around them or sporadic value. You're not sure who to trust week to week. Like, you tell me Lamar Jackson's throwing 5 touchdowns. I'm like, fire up Zay Flowers, fire up Mark Andrews. Let's go. Nope. Zay Flowers, he did all right, 6 for 53 on 7 targets, but did not score. Mark Andrews caught 1 touchdown, but 2 for 24, just 2 targets.
Brutal.
Devontae Walker scored a touchdown in this one. It doesn't make any sense, but this is the Lamar Jackson experience. This is why you want Lamar, and you don't need to pair him with anyone else and stack him up. Derrick Henry, they don't need him right now. They need him to win a Super Bowl, and that's why Derrick Henry's there. And I know that Derrick Henry knows that. I don't think he gives a crap that he wasn't used. This team dominated against a now 2-12 New York Giants team. Baltimore is just going to continue to cruise.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's got in PPR, he's 260 points. He's still RB4 at 1,400 plus yards rushing. He's got 13 touchdowns.
Sure.
It's just he was due for some games without touchdowns because it's really hard to get touchdowns. This is also the Saquon thing with Hurts, and this is the Josh Allen thing with James Cook. Sometimes these hypermobile quarterbacks will just take a little bit extra away. This is why we just get a little bit worried about those guys because sometimes it's gonna happen. The Adams looking good so far now down the stretch, but the Olave part of it is oh gosh, Adams been very up or down, but we'll talk about that with the Jets game. Adams has been absolutely on fire with the Jets, so it's been good. I like your chances. You got Bijan. Bijan's probably gonna put up 15 a minimum. You got the one thing is McCormack. That's the part. If he can get you 10, I think you're good. But Hawkinson and McCormack, you need at least 15 from those guys. Should be. It's up or down. I think you could do it. I think so.
Jeffrey Matt Harmon says this is the TJ Hawkinson game in man coverage. He's the man beater in that offense, according to Matt Harmon. If TJ Hawkinson doesn't come through to you, blame Matt Harmon. Matt Harmon, contact me for all defamation lawsuits.
Liability claims. Fuck you, Matt Harmon.
Love you, Matt Harmon. You'll never watch this, but appreciate you.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think he's a busy man with 8 shows a day. FC, the dreads were the power. You know what I'm saying? He looks very weird without them. It's just strange. But he was going from Predator to good. That's God's not Predator anymore. I don't have a good one for that one. So I'm just kind of stuck on that. I don't have a good one. Let's talk about the Giants for a second. Mr. Malik Nabers, welcome back, my friend. This is why we're finding Malik Nabers each and every week. I understand the issue, but 10 receptions, 14 targets, 82 yards and a touchdown. This is what we like Malik Nabers so much. And it's been very not so high end. He's been more floor play, but he's been okay. He's still wide receiver 9 all the season. That's kind of the thing. He's going under the radar. You get Atlanta, Indianapolis the next 2 weeks. I think you're going to fire Malik Nabers. If you haven't been firing up, this is the whole hey, guess what? I still have this in the bag, guys. You can fire me up. I like Tyrell Tracy in this game, but they went back to Singletary a little bit. Singletary got the touchdown. Tracy snaps fell. The one guy that's the one that has been the most consistent Malik Nabers. I think he just fired up. Everything else there, though. Whoo, boy. It is rough for other fantasy assets. The quarterback situation, they had Tim Boyle coming into this game doing things. It's not good. Bellinger had 3 targets. So, it's Malik Nabers, Tyrell Tracy. It's just kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, Tracy is rough because Singletary got 8 carries in this game. They damn near split. And they also had the same amount of yards per carry. So you really hate to see that. Tracy barely used in the receiving game as well. Baltimore will do that to running backs. So was kind of to be expected. We expected a lower game, but not anything like this. He had something like 5 PPR points. Disgusting. On the other end, to your point on Malik Nabers, thankfully, a veteran quarterback like Tim Boyle step in and just throw up an absolute duck to Malik Nabers in the end zone. He comes down with it and makes a beautiful adjustment. So look, just give guys that have the talent of Malik Nabers a chance to make a play. And thankfully they did that. This guy, if quarterbacks allow it, this guy, Malik Nabers, is quarterback proof. It just depends if the quarterback actually just will throw it up in his general vicinity. In the last 2 months, really almost every game except for one, he's damn near averaging double-digit targets, like you said. They just have to be targets that are around sometimes Tommy DeVito and, does not achieve that. But a guy like Tim Boyle can achieve that, I guess.
I don't know how Tim Boyle keeps finding NFL rosters. You look at his college stats and they're abysmal. Look at his NFL stats; he's abysmal. He must be the nicest guy in the NFL. He just comes to the roster, people love him. They're hey, keep Tim Boyle in the circle of trust. He is the guy we like. So some guys make a career out of this. Congrats to you for getting that bag, Tim Boyle. I don't know how you're doing it. You gotta teach us. You gotta teach us a trick or two, mister. Let's go to another game, which is know, I was a little bit surprised by Dallas really just dominating this game throughout, and Carolina kind of not living up to expectations. But the pass rush with the Cowboys, we talked about, like they have the highest pressure rate in the NFL, or like right top 5. Like they're there. They lost over Sean. We thought like, okay, it's probably going to be not a great game.
Yeah.
They sacked Bryce Young 6 times in this game. Jesus. Rico Dowdle has been really, really good. The one thing that makes no sense to me, why are you guys giving Ezekiel Elliott 9 carries in this game? Stop. Just get this guy off the field. Nobody wants to see Ezekiel Elliott touch the ball. He only saw 19% of snaps, but when he was on the field, he saw a ton of opportunities. I mean, they rushed 34 times in this game for the running back, so it is what it is. CeeDee Lamb did his thing once again, so this is why I kept firing CeeDee Lamb. Fortunately, Jake Ferguson did not, but Dowdle has been really, really good for you down the stretch. The last 3 weeks, at least 14 PPR points in those games. Been seeing a ton of work. He's averaged something like 22 touches per game in those 3 game spans, so he's got a decent run out against Tampa Bay. The Philadelphia game's rough, but Tampa Bay you can get there. So I think you're just firing up Rico as the RB2 moving forward, and you pair him with CD, and offense looks good. We talked about Cooper Rush, right? 22 more fantasy points. I mean, at this point, I don't know how I'm rank Cooper Rush against Tampa Bay, but I'm going to be interested in having to stream him if I have to, because I know they really destroyed the Chargers defense last week. I kind of think that's more of an aberration. Are you willing to fire Cooper Rush at all? Like in
I don't know.
Teams you need him?
Yeah, I was. I have him on a team that was on a bye. I have 2 teams that were on a bye, and I left him in because I'm like let's see. I always like to try to play with my roster to see what it look like, and I left him in both spots, and I was like, okay, yeah, I felt good about this matchup against Carolina. Against Tampa after this past week, no, I can't do the Cooper Rush thing anymore. You can and you will, and I will fire up CeeDee Lamb. You can and you will fire up Rico Dowdle, but Cooper Rush for me, no, just 214 yards, 3 TDs, thankfully. But yeah, I can't go to the well again with that against Tampa, who I don't know if they figured it out. Is it an aberration? I don't know. But when, you have Bryce Young dropping back to pass, okay, is that like Cooper Rush dropping back to pass? Well, probably, so we'll see what it looks like. But damn, it's been surprisingly good for Dallas. They're 6-8. I don't think they're technically eliminated from the playoffs yet.
They're hanging
because
around,
of this W. That's going to happen next week when they get crushed by Tampa. So.
Yeah, like Tampa looks very good. This is the thing in like NFL quarterbacks. Like if you put them under duress and pressure, like they are the majority, their stats just get worse. That is what it is. So Bryce Young, he only saw like 1 or 2 sacks last few weeks. This week's 6. He was pressured throughout. Like it's a massive difference in this game. I will say for the offense, Chuba Hubbard, we thought was gonna have a good game. They really got game scripted out of it, and he only had 10 carries, 32 yards. It just didn't work out well. Jalen Coker showed up, so this is why I was like, hey, let's make a shout out to Coker. Finally back healthy on the roster. He ran 87% of routes. So I think from this point moving forward, you're gonna kind of like decide between Thielen and Coker. You could probably fire up one of those guys if you want to, but they're like, they're wide receiver 4s. Maybe a little bit of upside from there. It's just, it is what it is. He had a massive play in this game, but he still saw 6 targets. Thielen saw similar 7 targets. Like, this is what the offense is going to run through because they're the best 2 wide receivers they have. Xavier Legette, it's just not proven to be that guy, even though I love the accent and all that fun stuff. You can't understand it half the time. Only 3 targets. He just has not been very good for them. That's the thing. So I think Coker's shown me a lot more. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, and he's also dealing with an injury on top of it, too. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Are you firing up any of these guys in the semifinal game next week?
How? This game made no goddamn sense, right? They were cruising the last few weeks. Bryce Young's figured it out. Adam Thielen is a target magnet. None of it came to fruition against one of the worst, not one of the worst, but one of the lesser defenses in the NFL who's dealing with a slew of injury. We forgot to mention again that Trayvon Diggs was out for the season, midweek. So it's like, this should have been a smash spot for these guys, but no, nobody started Jalen Coker in his first game back. Everyone fired up Hubbard. We expected a similar line to what Dowdle did in this game. It was going to be Hubbard against Dowdle. Who's going to get there faster? Bryce should have had a better game. Thielen should have had a better game. It was just a mess on the Carolina side from a fantasy perspective. So yeah, we shouldn't have been relying on these Carolina Panthers, but now, it's condensed. It's Thielen, it's Hubbard, it's Young. No. Nobody got home. It doesn't make any sense. So how can you rely on them? Unfortunately, you can't.
Yeah, it's tougher. This is more like deeper league strategy stuff because there are the deeper league. If you have 10-team leagues, like these guys aren't even in consideration, right? Because they're stacked. Like we had that 8-team league that we were talking about on Sid Show, and I was like, look at the roster, and I was like, that's why it's an 8-team league because they're absolutely stacked across the board, right? Let's pull up this comment here because it's going to talk about our Jets game. Yeah, that's the whole thing with Breece Hall, right? Is like you were counting on him potentially getting a touchdown on this game.
Correct.
That's what he got. It's more of the floor play with that. Now, he didn't get all of the work or anything of that nature. But the guy we really want to transition to talk about is Mr. Old Man Devontae Adams. Holy smokes.
Holy
yeah, he did some things. He was practically unstoppable in this game. 9 receptions, 12 targets, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was basically the entire – there's a stat. I need to find it. It was ridiculous stats. Like the last 4 minutes of regulation, he had 135 yards receiving or something nuts. It's like the most in a century. It was crazy town stuff. So, yeah, him and Brian Thomas Jr. went back and forth in this game. But, yeah, like Adams has been really good. And I'm going to stall for a second because I want to pull up the tweet that I put out about Adams. But since joining the Jets, I will be there in 1 second, he's averaging a ridiculous amount of yards. Like his season-long pace is 172 targets, 104 receptions, 1,383 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That's ridiculous usage. So, yeah, Devontae Adams, the wide receiver one. I like Garrett Wilson, but, yeah, man, it's like their connection with Rodgers. I kind of want just Rodgers to come back so that Adams could do his thing again.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to happen, though, because Rodgers already said he kind of doesn't want to come back. So, we'll see who the quarterback is next year. And Adams is under contract, so maybe they move him again in a trade or something. Who knows with this team? Because the Jets look like they're not contenders, not even close to contenders. So I don't know what they're going to do because there's no point keeping him on the roster. But if he's on the roster next year, I think it's interesting. For Breece Hall, like I think this game was coming back from an injury. Saw 48% of snaps. Are you worried against the Rams or Buffalo about firing him up? Are you going to start him? Where are you kind of at with Breece Hall?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. Against the Rams, not excited about it, but against Buffalo, yeah. You're going to fire up Breece Hall. You play him both weeks. Maybe he's not your RB1, he's your RB2. That's okay because he can definitely get there. Isaiah Davis is being used more. We like to see that. The coaches have seen on tape what we saw on tape, that he's explosive. Braylon Allen didn't get a whole lot of run in this game at all because he's basically the Breece Hall replacement. But it's nice to see that Isaiah Davis can kind of carve out a minor role. The problem is for fantasy, that doesn't do anything for you for Isaiah Davis, and it only takes away from Breece Hall. So we like the role that Breece Hall had, but now coming back from injury, they certainly don't want to do anything long-term to hurt his value or performance. So yeah, I think unfortunately Isaiah Davis stays a little bit more involved, but who are you playing over Breece Hall? That's really the question. Are you playing like Najee Harris? Probably not. Are you playing like Brian Robinson in tougher matchups? Maybe not against the Eagles. You're not. So like there's lots of, guys that, Breece Hall will play above, and only a few that you're going to play over him. So yeah, you roll him out.
Yeah, I think he's going to be likely in that 70%-ish snap share. If he's there next week, he's going to be a top 12 guy for you. It's just is what it is. Has one of the better roles in the NFL, even if Isaiah Davis carves out a little bit more work. Because like before the injury, Breece Hall was at like 81% of snaps, which is just absurd. If we push it in like the 70s, he can still give you 20 touches in the game. If he gives you 20 touches in this game, you know what you're getting. I'm going to talk about the Jaguars for a second. And my goodness, Brian Thomas Jr., he's incredible. I think you can make the case for him to be the wide receiver one. The Jacksonville offense, it's clear Mac Jones loves Brian Thomas Jr. He's been absolutely on fire with Brian Thomas Jr. So since Mac Jones took over, it's 7 targets, it's 10 targets, it's 12 targets, it's 14 targets. I don't know. If we keep this trajectory going, we might have 20 targets by the next week in Vegas. Who knows what it is? Yeah. And Brian Thomas Jr. has everything you could have asked for a rookie wide receiver. He's been incredible. Yep. And then I think the interesting takeaway is freaking Brenton Strange out of nowhere putting up 12 targets, 11 receptions, 73 yards. They get Vegas next week. If you might be firing them up again, like because Evan Ingram's out for the year. So I think you could do the Brenton Strange thing once again if you want to. I don't expect we're 12 targets, but I think he's going to be usable for teams in the semifinal, which is crazy town to talk about. But that just shows you how tight end it is. It's just I was surprised by this. I was like, oh, okay, hello. We'll see it against Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, is like you expected once Trevor Lawrence went down for the season that this was going to be it for these pass catchers. Here are, 5 games of Mac Jones starting 22, 29, 32, 31, and 46 pass attempts. This is approaching Jameis, Sam Howell level from last year. It's not necessarily there. We're not at 40 times a game, but this team is down all the time. The running game often doesn't work. We got Vegas next week, which is, should by all accounts be a shootout, as much as bad teams can have a shootout. But Mac Jones throwing this much with this defense being serviceable is super interesting. And yeah, Brian Thomas, like you said, 10, 12, 14 targets the last 3 weeks. And then you also have Brenton Strange, who's available, but there's nobody else on this team. That's the thing. Are you going to give Parker Washington double-digit targets? No, please don't do that. Devin Duvernay double-digit targets? Stop. So it's Brian Thomas, it's Brenton Strange, it's maybe Travis Etienne if he can kind of get out of his own way, which has been impossible. So yeah, Mac Jones is just going to continue to fire it down the field. And look, Travis Etienne in his last few games, 3, 4, and 5 targets. He's getting a lot more work on the ground. It's these two guys, nobody else.
Yeah, I think if we're pushing 70+% of snaps for ETN, he's going to be probably viable for Vegas. So he'll be in rankings, like he'll be top 30 in rankings. I'm just going to against Vegas. Now, it wonders how much they're going to pass because they passed a lot in this game. And they had they had a lead throughout. So that's the weird thing. I don't know how that, sustainable that is against Vegas or not. But yeah, it's interesting to pay attention to. Let's go to Miami and Houston and talk about that game. Jonnu Smith is our Lord and Savior pickup of the year, whatever you want to call it. Jonnu Smith, once again, just doing Jonnu things. Like, he's just out of control. 9 receptions, 11 targets. Now, they only got 48 yards. So this is more of the David Njoku experience where a ton of targets, not a lot of yards and a touchdown. But still, if you're giving a guy 11 targets as a tight end on the offense, like, this is fantastic. And with Tua, now this game, their offenses really struggle across the board. Miami only put up 12 points. H-Ham was inefficient again. But yeah, if you have Jonnu Smith, I can't find 5 more tight ends I want to play like next week. I don't even care if it's matchup dependent. Like, you just play them and you just see how it goes because you get San Francisco and they can be had. Simple.
Yeah, and the thing is too that Houston really came to play. Kalen Bullock just absolutely went nuclear in the secondary. I believe he was replacing Jalen Petrie, who's out for the season, and he was just everywhere out of nowhere. I mean, this guy was insane. Tua Stingley, obviously with the 2 interceptions, just locked down Tyreek Hill. I have never seen anyone lock down Tyreek Hill. I know he's struggled all season, but Stingley was getting home, and Tua, after like a month of amazing play, was just absolutely horrible. The Texans knew it was up, and they really played the Dolphins very well, and there was nothing they could do. Tua, 196 yards, 3 picks.
It was not
a mess. It was a mess.
It was rough. It's like that. The Houston defense has some quality playmakers on it. It doesn't have the depth. Yeah. And their linebacking core has been really bad. So this is the Jonnu Smith that we probably should pay attention to. Their linebackers are abysmal in coverage. I don't know how DeMeco Ryans feels about that because that's kind of his specialty. They get tore up, and that's kind of like the weak link of this offense, and that's probably why they targeted Jonnu so much. It makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's interesting to see next week. Go ahead.
I would just say for the first time this season, Christian Harris played. He was back from IR off the bye. That really helped. 8 tackles in this game and really helped to solidify that defense, and got the extra week of practice from everyone to integrate him. Could be the difference maker for this defense. We'll see.
They need it. Yeah. Like if he can centralize those linebackers, it goes a long way to helping out this team because Houston's 9-5. And I think it's a good time to just transition to talk about them. The offense was ridiculously bad in this game. Stroud only 131 yards, Mixon 23 yards. Nico, who got 2 touchdowns, 17 yards. Tank Dell, you can drop Tank Dell and redraft him. I'm not even doing the Tank Dell thing. They won this game based on how their defense played because their offense didn't do anything. Now they got a couple of turnovers in like key spots where they didn't have to drive down the field situation type stuff, but still they put up not a lot of yards in this game. It was gross. This is a defensive game where they won the game for them. They get Casey and Baltimore next 2 weeks, so it's going to be very difficult for this. Those are 2 really good defenses, so Stroud's gonna be a tough play. Like, I don't think many people are playing him, but I would not want you to play him in the championships. Like, I would just bench him and move to other positions. Because, like, if we talk about Cooper Rush, like, I'd probably play Cooper Rush over CJ Stroud, just being real with you. Like, I don't want to do that, which that's where we're at. Do you have any concern with Mixon moving forward about the kind of inefficiency we've seen lately from him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the injury for him. DeMeco Ryans came out today and said that, he thinks he's going to be okay, but there was a hip drop tackle on him in the second or third quarter. I forget what it was. He was hobbled for the rest of the game after that. Yeah, but 1.9 yards per carry is not Joe Mixon-esque. He crushed you in your fantasy lineups this week. He crushed me in one or two of mine. It just is what it is. Nico Collins for his 2 touchdowns, just 4 for 17 yards. Ridiculous. Crazy. You're thankful he got home, but he really didn't do anything other than score those touchdowns. Like you said, this offense was terrible. The Miami Dolphins have been great on defense all year. At this point, I'm not surprised by this, but yeah, you wanted more from this Texans offense. You didn't
yes, you did. Yeah, one of those games that just did not live up to expectations. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Nico. You really can't fade him. You have to play Nico just because he's the one guy that's consistently without Nico, this offense struggles to do a lot of things. And like even Mixon's been really good on volume, but like the offense has not been that good at rushing in general, if that makes a lot of sense from like an overall scheme perspective. So yeah, those are the 2 guys. If this injury is worse, this is the thing that worries me with Mixon. If it's like a significant, like if it's like an ankle injury or whatever it is, like we don't know the details on it, like this could limit his production moving forward. So you're gonna fire him up, but like you kind of have that in the back of your mind and just, hopefully it's nothing too bad. Let's go talk about Denver and Indianapolis and Anthony Richardson. My goodness, my friends. Pumpkin. It was started out nice for them, and then it started to deteriorate. And it was this. I always make this reference in like games of this situation, like the quicksand game from the replaceables calories where he's talking about it. It continues to get bad and bad and bad and worse and worse and worse. This game devolved for Indianapolis. Towards the end of it, it was just a blowout for Denver because their defense really put the clamps on them. I mean, Jonathan Taylor did not do them any favors. He had a walk-in touchdown, flipped it behind his back, and did not get a touchdown. You cannot do that in the NFL.
Football.
Taylor. Yeah, it was like a 50-yard touchdown run too. This came up in plenty of group chats. People were like, "No, what are you doing?" Yeah, so he still had a good game, still 107 yards, but he could have had a much better day, Jonathan Taylor. Just the difficulty of the offense. There's plenty of issues. You think they would be more fundamentally sound, but this is the Richardson thing. They just made a ton of turnovers. Yeah. Pittman saw the most targets offensively, saw 9 targets, so keep that in mind. I thought Downs would have a better game than he did, but 8 targets, only 32 yards. Like, just the offense in general was not great outside of Taylor putting up the yardage, but it's just, Denver's defense is good. This can happen against another good defense, even though Riley Moss was out in this game, so I think that's probably why Pittman had a better game, so the truth. Like, that's more what it is.
We talked about Wallace. He was a healthy scratch in this game. So the guy they brought in, he was actually running around the field and making a few plays. Not a good corner, but certainly better than whatever Wallace was throwing out there last week. Anthony Richardson back to his old sub 50% completion percentage ways in this one. No TDs through the air, 2 interceptions. Of course, Patrick Surtain had at least one, maybe both of them. And Anthony, 746 on the ground with a touchdown. This is what we want, but you can't do that and like just completely nuke your team with the interceptions and the horrible efficiency through the air. So look, it's the Denver Broncos. I'll give A-Rich a pass as, a young quarterback going against one of the top defenses in the league. Sure. But he's going to have to get better in short order. He had one good game against the Jets back in week 11, and then Detroit killed him. New England, not a great team, still 50% completion percentage there. Got home on touchdowns, but Tennessee, Giants, he should absolutely roll in these last 2 weeks. He has to, for the sake of his career, I think.
Yeah, like he has not played a lot of games, so I will give him that. But yeah, this is the same song and dance we've done with him for 2 seasons now. And I get it. He was basically like so just raw as a prospect coming out of college. This should have been this expectation with him. But yeah, injuries have, derailed his career a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Steichen, I don't know what's going on, but like it's just not going well. Like you thought you'd be able to scheme it up and protect him a little bit more. Yeah. That's not happening because you saw like at least with Joe Flacco, they were able to move the ball a little bit better. It's just kind of is what it is. Denver, Bo Nix is doing the thing. He's doing the stuff that we thought Richardson would be doing. He's the top 8 quarterback this year. Just another, solid performance. He put up a good game, like 16 fantasy points. Not the best, not the worst, but they put up 31 overall points. The running back room, once again, just avoid the Denver running backs. I don't know what you want to do with these running backs. Complete split across the board. Estime, Williams, McLaughlin, no thank you. Our guy, Cortland Sutton, caught a touchdown. So similar to Nico Collins, his day was saved by a touchdown because it was not good. 3 receptions, 9 targets, 32 yards. The rest of the wide receivers are really just boomer bust. So it's really just Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. You're rolling with this team in championships because those are 2 guys that have been consistent doing it once a game. And you're going to be fired up one more time.
Yeah, 3 interceptions. This game is really disappointing for Bo Nix, but otherwise three touchdowns, just 130 yards, and he continues to run the ball on the ground. So, like you said, QB 14, not terrible. With 3 touchdowns though, is not great. You would hope for more against the Chargers. I don't know if that's going to be there. He certainly is no Baker Mayfield at this point. Against Cincinnati, you're going to want Bo Nix in your fantasy championship. That's for sure. But yeah, you'd hope for more for Cortland Sutton. Like you said, these backs are unplayable. They're all splitting 7, 6, and 5 carries. So you just roll with Sutton, you roll with Nix, and you cross your fingers.
Yeah, that's kind of is what it is. These guys have gotten you to this point so far. They've been really good. Both were really undervalued assets going into the year, and they've far exceeded expectations. Let's go talk about the game of the just fantasy game of the year. Just my goodness, Buffalo. Josh Allen is on an all-time heater. 30 fantasy points, 54 fantasy points, 43 fantasy points. These 3 games. Josh Allen's unstoppable. The thing about this game is James Cook got home as well in this game. He was really good. Yep. Khalil Shakir, we were talking about starting Khalil Shakir. He did good. Amari Cooper, where I don't know what you did. Somebody made a joke did Amari Cooper hit on Josh Allen's fiance? And I was like, I don't know at this point. I don't know because he went from monster target game to just nothing burger. I don't know what happened with him.
Crazy.
Dalton Kincaid, really just another just mediocre performance from Dalton Kincaid. Not really too much to talk about, but yeah, man, Josh Allen is just single-handedly pulling you to the semifinals. You might have had to get going a little bit against Lamar, and maybe that was the one counterbalance. But if you didn't play Lamar and you had Allen, you had a significant advantage over everybody in the rest of the league. Well, maybe we could talk about Goff because Goff went insane on this game too. Yeah, I guess with Cook you could talk about. Do you have any concern with Cook? He only saw 41% snaps in this game. The snaps have been kind of not great for him the last couple of weeks. He didn't have 40%, so I'm not sure what's going on with that aspect, but they get New England and they get the Jets next 2 weeks. He should be fine. Yeah. It should be good, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay. You might see a down game here against the Jets, but you're not going to see it against New England next week. He should be a smash. But with Josh Allen as well, yeah, you're obviously playing him. But the thing with Josh Allen is, he's going out. He's like you said, putting this team on his back. He's beaten the Los Angeles Rams, who have been great. He's beaten the Detroit Lions. He's beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's probably going to lose in the second round of playoffs. So this is the way of the Buffalo Bills fan. It just is what it is. This team should win the AFC. I think they're the best team, but when you have Baltimore, when you have that Pittsburgh Steelers defense and Mike Tomlin, you never know what they're going to dial up. When you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who've won 2 Super Bowls in a row, there's no way you can make the Bills the favorite, and they're not even going to get the damn bye. So they're going to have to win out, and someone's going to figure out how to stop Josh Allen, or at least limit him to the point where it becomes a problem. But yeah, Josh Allen was struggling a little bit fantasy wise, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm the QB1. Here's why." And I think Lamar is still technically the QB1, but only because he threw those 5 touchdowns. Josh Allen will probably overtake him before the season ends.
Yeah. Lamar's at 25.8 points per game in the standard scoring leagues. Josh Allen's at 25. So Josh Allen has closed the gap. If he puts together another 40-point game, because I don't know at this point, who knows what's happening with Josh Allen, right? He could entirely do it. And it's going to be fascinating to see these two because they're clearly head and shoulders above everybody else from a fantasy perspective. Then it's Hurts and Burrow and Mayfield and those guys. So Mayfield's come down a little bit. But yeah, both of these guys are going to push over 400 fantasy points for you in a season. And if any quarterback does that, that's an all-time season. So we're getting 2 really, really good from them. And hey, Jamie, don't worry about it with Lamar. I left a joke out a couple lineups. It's just sometimes it happens when we have that many leagues where we were on the sit start show and I was like, oh God, I haven't touched my lineup. So I was frantically trying to set them. It's a terrible idea. Be prepared. And I was not prepared. So that was my own fault. I'll do it.
Yeah, man. I caught Joe Mixon on my bench last second, quickly subbed out Mike Evans. That's a true story. And you're like, here we
are. Exactly right. We're like, the Mike Evans stuff. It's no, we were talking about it on screen. I'm like Cooper. I'm like, no, Evans. You're like, yeah, do it. I was like, okay,
do it anyway.
Let's talk about Detroit. Jared Goff threw for practically 500 yards. These two offenses were just hey, guess what? I'll match you bar for bar. Like, we're just going to go do it. This is by far the best game of Goff's career. He's never been that high. And now he did get in that shootout against Kansas City, but it was not this level of performance where he had 5 touchdowns, 500 yards. This is an all-time passing performance from a quarterback. Ridiculous stuff from Goff. These defenses could not stop either one of them. Jahmyr Gibbs was great in this game. The David Montgomery thing, we'll talk about that for a second because he torn MCL is what it sounds like. He's done for the year. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a ton of work. It's going to be fantastic for fantasy. He gets Chicago, who can be had on the ground, and San Francisco, who can be had. They're probably going to use some combination of Craig Reynolds and Vaki, the rookie, who's like the converted safety playing running back. Or maybe they break someone up and in like that. It's kind of similar situation with that. But yeah, if you have Gibbs, he's going to be pushing like, we're talking like Chase Brown type status. I expect that to be the case because he's so good. And if that's the case in this Detroit offense, like you're going to see like an even higher boost for. So if you have him, it's a great boost. Yeah, Amon-Ra St. 18 targets. I mean, good Lord, Amon-Ra St. Brown. 193 yards. He was incredible in this game. Touchdown. Laporta had 10. This is the nice thing about throwing it 60 times in a game.
Yeah.
Laporta had 10 target. Like, everyone gets home when you throw it 60 times in a game. And you just run 100 plays. They both teams run insane amount of plays. So, yeah, this game is an outlier. But, yeah, I was excited to watch this game. It was glorious. It was glorious.
I'm just going to vent real quick. Like, Tim Patrick is slowly killing Jameson Williams. Like, what the hell? Like, Tim Patrick, I loved him. I grabbed him everywhere in the offseason. He was on Denver. Oh, he's a clear number 2. We're okay. Jerry Jeudy's out of town. And then they cut his ass. He ends up in Detroit. And, oh, look, he's doing decent to good wide receiver things. The problem is he's buried. You can't play him. But, yeah, scored another touchdown on this one and totally split in half Jameson Williams' particular, targets. Tim Patrick had 8 targets to Jamo's 5. So, that's the thing. You're throwing it 60 times, but Jameson Williams is 3 for 37. He actually scored in this one, thank goodness, or else he has a terrible day. So, yeah, going forward, I don't know what you can do. Chicago, San Francisco, like you said, we'll see. I guess they have to throw it more with no Monty.
Yeah, like, it's going to be interesting with James Williams because, like, his usage the first 2 weeks was fantastic. It's kind of shifted since then. I mean, even after, like, post-buy and stuff, he's been solid. Like, the targets he's had practically he's at the last like 5 weeks. He's had 5 targets in any of those games. A lot of them are 6, 7, or 8. So he's been okay. It's just he's more boom bust. It kind of is what it is in his role. Hey, I mean, not bad. That'll do it. That'll do it for you. Trading. Yeah, when we talked about people getting Chase Brown for cheaper, this is like how you did it. It's obviously no one expected it to go this far to the one way where it's like Tyreek's been so boom bust. Chase Brown's been practically the RB1 in fantasy. Like that's kind of how. Sometimes you get lucky with trades like this, and bravo for you for making that deal because, you're looking at that trade and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel fantastic. And the other guy's like, oh man, I have Tyreek and D-Hop. This sucks. Like, it is what it is, right?
It's how you fantasy, man. It's how you fantasy.
All right, let's talk about another just terrible fantasy game. George Pickens missed this game for Pittsburgh, and my God, did they need him because they have no offensive weapons without George Pickens. The problem is the matchup against the defense for Philadelphia. Like, we knew Najee was going to be super just really low floor play. That's what he was in this game. Not much of anything, man. 3 passing points. Jalen Warren didn't do anything as well. They had Cordarrelle Patterson making some moves. It was abysmal. Russell Wilson couldn't pass. Calvin Austin had a decent amount of targets, but he's 5 for 65. Freiermuth caught the 1 touchdown. But yeah, this shows you how depleted the talent is on that Pittsburgh offense for skill position players. Like when you lose the one good NFL wide receiver and you're just going to these like, let's face it, mediocre NFL wide receivers or any good NFL wide receivers, this hurts against a really quality defense. So I think we kind of were excited for Russ, but we had him by bottom 24 rankings because of this. We knew the matchup was bad and with no Pickens. So, this is kind of what we thought was going to happen, unfortunately.
I think the takeaway here is we have some really bad, good AFC teams. Kansas City is now 13-1. They're horrific. The Steelers are 10-4. Absolutely terrible on the offensive side of the ball. The Bills, they can do it on offense, but you can get over on that defense. They barely won those last 2 games, and they had to score 40-plus points because the other teams scored 40-plus points. So it's just the AFC is looking rough. The only really solid team all around is Baltimore. But I don't know if they can beat these other teams. We'll see. Didn't they lose to the Steelers a few weeks ago? So, look, I don't know what the hell to make of this division, I think. But, with Monty down, the NFC has some cracks as well. It might just be the Eagles run away with this one. But yeah,
Yep,
there's
it'll be the best
nothing
team.
to talk about here. No redeemable things. Pat Fryermuth is not a thing. He just scored a touchdown. So just you can't really play anyone. I mean, who do they have the next few weeks? I have it here. Baltimore and Kansas City. Good God.
Good.
Like just shut them all down. Shut them all down. Shut them all. You can't do it.
Yeah, the AFC teams are super matchup dependent. Like Baltimore, they'll own Buffalo because they match up really well against them. Against a team like you saw, like Pittsburgh, like it's a harder matchup for them because they don't have. So these games are going to go a lot of ways. Like Kansas City's good enough, like they more than likely will be in the AFC Championship game at least. It's just we'll see some combination of Buffalo. We'll see some combination of Baltimore. Maybe Pittsburgh gets in. It's just they all have flaws. And the NFC, the Lions were the best team, but they have been depleted. Where it looks like Philadelphia, that offense, they need Jalen Hurts. Like that's the limitation of that offense. If he can take it to another level, they can win the Super Bowl. I just don't know if he's going to do it. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, we need to talk about Mr. A.J. Brown really quick because he looked like he had an ankle sprain and he could miss next week. So if you have A.J. Brown, prepare to see him on the bench, which sucks, which is good news for Devonta Smith if you have Devonta Smith because he gets Washington and Dallas. So these are really good matchups for these wide receivers. Saquon did not get there, but I mean, you could probably fire up Calcaterra as well, too, even though he did nothing for you in this game. But I really think it's just going to be a Devonta Smith game. I don't know who else you're going to want to trust on the receiving end, to tell you the truth. And I expect a heavy Saquon Barkley game, even though he did get injured in this game this time, came back, still saw 19 carries. It's just Hurts got all the touchdowns. Sometimes that happens. Hurts was the touchdown moneymaker. He had 30 fantasy points. You know, it is what it is when you get 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground. You know, that's how it's going to happen sometimes.
I was shocked by the amount of targets that Devonta Smith got in this game. Great. Like, good for him. He is that talent. The thing is, they just hadn't been doing that. But it seems like they went out there and made a point, right? That first of all, squeaky wheel game to A.J. Brown. He got home on 11 targets. Well done. 8 for 110 and 1. But Devonta Smith basically did the same thing, 11 for 109 and 1 because Jalen Hurts was just chucking it all over the yard. By the way, we don't like the passing game. How about this, A.J. Brown? Just like throw it all over the yard, Jalen Hurts. And he was fine, almost 300 yards. So this is the issue here, is that, you know, Saquon Barkley, as I typed it out, just absolutely did nothing for you here. Yeah, the injury, but he's been doing it all season. He's the rushing king. He's going on an all-time season-long heater here. 65 yards isn't terrible and not going to derail him, but he does need to be healthy. Washington, Dallas Giants to figure it out. You don't think Saquon's going to go for 300 against New York? What did he do to them earlier this season? Didn't he absolutely obliterate them? So
yeah, on 17 carries. It's like 176 yards, just nuts.
You fire up Saquon regardless. It's going to be a bloodbath rest of season against the NFC East, but this is what you pay your money for.
Yeah, and this was probably one of, if it's not his worst game of the year, it might have been the game against Cleveland. He's still averaging like 140 total yards a game. Like that's what he's doing. So I think he's going to be just fine. And I don't think he's going to get the rushing record anymore just because he had such a down game. He's going to have to have. Now that said, these two matchups, if he pushes over 150 rushing yards in both these games, he could get really close, right? So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to see him. Yeah, I mean,
good work.
It was a good call. I think we had him top 30-ish, but yeah, we were not that bullish on him. So congrats to you on that call, Jamie. That was a good one. This offense is really good. Saquon Barkley's still the running back 1. And fortunately, if you got eliminated through this game, that's just how it goes. So if you're still lucky enough to be alive, congrats. You'll be living good.
Fucking, I hate fantasy sometimes, bro.
In one of our, like, there's certain matchups you have against certain teams, right? Like you go against a heavy hitter, your team scores. There's like other matchups I'm in leagues where it's a low scoring affair between me and this other team, even though we're really good teams. It's just like that's how it goes. Matchups make the differences. So I know we talk about skill, but there's significant luck sometimes matchups and how they go, right? 100%. Like your team sees some team going off, magically your guys are like, all right, we got to score a lot of points. Or they're not scoring, your guys are like, Saquon's like, nah, I'm just going to take it off because you don't need the points. That's just how it goes. Let's talk about New England and Arizona and just an ugly, ugly game. Like I just don't even get me started on Kyler. What the hell? Drake Maye was okay from a fantasy perspective. 18 fantasy points, like pretty solid. Didn't run a lot, but he did get the rushing touchdown. Outside of that, man, it's so tough with this offense. We liked Ramondre potentially in this game, but just Antonio Gibson's like, hey guys, I'm back in your life, so I'm playing a role, and If that's the case for Ramondre, it's really difficult. I don't even want to talk about these wide receivers and tight ends, man. They're just like, who's firing up any of these guys? Like,
no,
it's just, you can't. It's Drake Maye and nothing else. And these matchups are not great for him, right? So it's
And we talked about Hunter Henry, like the targets had been there for the last month plus for Hunter Henry. They just kind of evaporated in this game, spread the ball around. Drake Maye did. And we talked earlier in the show about Drake Maye being this Lamar Jackson-esque type player in that. Kyler Murray is another really good example of that, except Trey McBride has been so damn consistent. But these mobile quarterbacks being able to distribute the ball wherever they want because they scramble around enough to the point where somebody comes open, doesn't matter who the hell it is, and you just throw it to that guy. So, Drake Maye is not Lamar Jackson, but Drake Maye's play style lends itself to us not knowing who's going to go off week by week. This week, it was, I guess if you want to call it going off, it was Kendrick Bourne at least leading the wide receiver room in total yards. Austin Hooper had a better day than Hunter Henry. But nobody got there. The thing is Ramondre Stevenson, just 13 carries, but 69 yards, 5.3 clip. Like, give the man the ball more. The problem is that they're down quickly and that all of a sudden game script does not allow for Ramondre to get his 20 to 25 carries on the ground, which is what he should be getting to keep him rolling. Against Buffalo next week, they should run the ball early and often. But obviously Buffalo is going to crush them. So Ramondre is going to be scripted out later in the game, like mid-second quarter, but like run the ball early and often because you can run on Buffalo. I don't know what Detroit was doing early on. You're supposed to be running the ball against Buffalo. Jared Goff just had, like you said, threw it 60 times, but he was throwing from the beginning. It doesn't make any sense what some of these teams are doing. Buffalo Chargers, Ramondre, I don't think you can start him if somehow you're still alive.
Yeah, they only had 47 offensive plays in this game. That's abysmal. That makes it so hard for fantasy production. Yeah. And if you're not getting consistent drives, you're doing 3 and outs, you can't really do anything. This is the problem with these. Like, these guys are kind of pulling Drake Maye down, the talent around him. So this is why Jamie's comment right here, like where I can't find it. Like you get a really good NFL, like a rookie wide receiver. If it's going to be Travis Hunter, I don't care. Get somebody in there, dude. Sign somebody. I know we need some NFL quality playmakers in there. Go get Deontay Johnson. Go get some players. Improve this wide receiver core. Give him a shot because he needs it. That and the offensive line. We'll talk about Seahawks and offensive line too. New England's offensive line too, man. Both of these offensive lines are just abysmal. No, I don't think it's too bold at all. I have him in that range too, so I'm fine with it there.
It's just you just kind of.
Yeah,
he's like number
he's in
10.
that range.
If he's top 10, he's number 10.
Well, it's like, do you want to do the Kyler thing? This could be on a rant for a little bit with Kyler. It's so frustrating. He's quarterback 11 this year, but it's awful. So hard to start him. It's been brutal. He's just not giving you the ceiling. And I know it's a new year, offensive coordinator, all this fun stuff with both of these. It's just, they're probably going to change what they're doing. Like, I don't know. Is Alex Campbell staying in New England? Do you know if he's staying another year or if he's going to come out? It's the problem. So if it's with these quarterbacks and they get together offensive coordinator, you don't get to build it, right? You start over from scratch. And if they do that with Kyler, it just makes it tough for these guys. Yeah, you can put them as long as it's outside of the truly elite guys, once you get past the truly elites, and then you get past Burrow and those guys, and then it's you get about quarterback 7. I think you can make the case if you like any of these guys significantly higher in there because you're going to have Jaden Daniels in that first tier. Outside of that, you know what I'm saying?
I want Herbert over Maye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about Herbert is people are just
Love over Maye.
What? Stroud, you see what I'm saying?
Stroud's a tough one.
Yeah. Stroud's had such a bad year. It's just, and then Mahomes, you could make a case for these guys, a lot of these guys from about 8 to about 15. If you want to play that game, whichever way you want to go with those guys, we'll have Trevor Lawrence coming back. There's going to be a lot of fluctuation with these valuations. So there's a lot of money to be made in the streets in that dynasty in this offseason because people are not going to value these guys correctly. And we'll get young guys coming in. I don't want to talk about it too much, but let's go to James Conner just doing his thing. By the way, this Kyler thing could not buy a touchdown for his life. Dortch fell down at the 1. Then they had another touchdown pass that was brought back due to a penalty. Kyler had one open, and then he gets dropped down at the 1. James Conner, once again, touchdown. So Kyler could not buy a touchdown to save his life in this game. You can tell I watched this game and how frustrated I'm talking about it. But yeah, James Conner's dope, man. He's done it the entire year. What is he, running back 10? Just another 138 yards total. Just James Conner's awesome. And if you bought into James Conner in this offseason, I think you're loving life because he was dirt cheap. Nobody wanted him. And yeah, it's nice to see. How you feeling about James Conner in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, he's great. I have nothing to say about James Conner. He's playing Carolina next week. Great. Like, fire him up. I expect another RB1 performance. And then he plays the Rams. Like, go ahead and fire up James Conner yet again. Like, he's crushing. Trey Benson is doing little back there to take away significant workload. For some reason, DJ Dallas was involved in this game, getting 4 touches. But that's probably because it was all garbage time. Like, James Conner is the workhorse in this backfield. He's proven it time and time again when healthy, and when the Cardinals are not inexplicably crushing teams, which they've done a few times this year. That defense is hit or miss sometimes. But against Carolina, they're going to hit. Against the Rams, they're probably going to miss. But that'll be an entertaining game, to say the least. So, yeah, James Conner, you fire him up. Trey McBride, you fire him up. The rest of these guys, I don't know. Marvin Harrison, I think you have to pump the brakes and just give him a year or two to see. He might be on the JSN breakout plan. We'll see if that happens. But I don't think he's breaking out with Kyler Murray. I don't know what the hell Kyler Murray's doing, but he's not really playing NFL quarterback. That's for sure.
They don't even have a Tyler Lockett is the problem. It's like Trey McBride, nobody else. Like, what is it? Michael Wilson, Zay, like Greg Dortch. Like, this was the perfect setup for him to hit. So, yeah, like, I know a lot of people talked about it. Like, I could not put Brian Thomas Jr. above him. Can't put Marvin Harrison Jr. above, or sorry, what the heck's his name in New York? I'm going to blank his name.
Nabers.
Yes, that guy. You can't put those two guys above him. He could be the rookie wide receiver 3 by default if you wanted to, but like I'd say Ladd's in the discussion. All the other guys too. Like, yeah it's rough.
But let's just be clear. Christian Gonzalez is him. He absolutely blanketed Marvin Harrison Jr. The problem is Marvin Harrison Jr. should be able to overcome that a little bit. 6 targets, just 2 for 32. So Christian Gonzalez, great. At the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to put up over 800 yards on the year. He's got 647. He's got 7 touchdowns. It's a fine year. It's just expectations were so high for him is the thing, because the level of prospects he was, all of that fun stuff. Like, he should have come into the ground running and just been that guy. It's clearly been Trey McBride. Like, Trey McBride's that guy for them. So, can it happen? I don't know, man. We'll see. We don't got to talk about this too much because we're already kind of running along. Let's go to Tampa Bay and the Chargers and Michael Lynn Evans. Oh, just put him in the Hall of Fame, folks. He's so good. Yeah. So this game got out of hand. Like, they were losing, and then it flipped on a dime. And then Baker was like, hey, guess what? I got Mike Evans. Let's just throw YOLO bombs to Mike Evans. And he ends up with 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan was surprisingly good in this game. He got 5 of 6 for 75. So Jalen McMillan might be someone you might want to think about streaming moving forward. Kate Otten did not do it. Rashad White with the Bucky Irving, they split. So both of the guys got there. Like, they basically split the work down Lamar. Bucky just did not play that much. Like, he had, I think he had like 50% of snaps. Which is kind of crazy. And, that was Rashad White, 50%. Did Rashad White get hurt? Like, there's something. My stats are just, they're not reading it correctly. So I'm going to stop talking about those games.
I got you.
Let me know if you see the
44% for Bucky. 44%.
For Bucky? Okay. That makes a hell of a lot more sense. Yeah. And then Rashad White was like 51. All right, cool. So, yeah, they basically split it between these two guys. And we'll see how it is moving forward. I think this was kind of a game where I just want to take it easy with Bucky. He was still super efficient. 15 carries, 117 yards. Like, Rashad White was solid. So if you start either one of those guys, it's good. Mike Evans, you kind of know. And Baker, like, Baker's dope. I'm not sure how high is he's quarterback, like 5? Yeah, quarterback 5 on the year. And he gets Dallas and Carolina. So we're going to have Baker incredibly high once again. And I know you had him really high in this last game. So kudos to you, man. You called it.
Yeah, and this was always going to be the Bucky Irving down game. You don't love to see that he's splitting the work with Rashad White, but he's coming. He barely practiced all week. He's coming back to health. You want to fire him up next week against Dallas, and 2 weeks from now against Carolina. Bucky is going to go nuts. But Rashad White continues to score a touchdown every single goddamn game. How is he doing this? I don't know, but only on 2 targets, 2 for 17 and a touchdown through the air. Again, he has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 receiving touchdowns. That has to lead the league for running backs, or if not tied for the league in running backs. That's a ridiculous amount already with 3 games to go. Rashad White is just absolutely crushing either on the ground or through the air. He also had 15 carries, 64 yards. So you can start both of these guys, but I want Bucky. I think he's going to be super, super valuable, assuming he's 100%. We're hoping. It doesn't seem like he had any setbacks We'll see what the practice looks like this week. But, at Dallas, at home against Carolina is such a good run out. But yeah, Baker crushed. Mike Evans crushed. Last thing I'll say is Jalen McMillan did it in the first half. Mike Evans did very little. Then the second half, like you said, they just started bombing it to Mike Evans. He got home twice. Just monster. I mean, Hall of Famer, like you say. What do? You throw your hands up and be like, yeah, Mike Evans. In the future, he was my wide receiver 7 of the week. In the future, I'll just, go by my rankings to set my fantasy lineups. Maybe that's something I should be doing.
Yeah, Mike Evans up 749 yards on the year. So he's got 3 games left. He's about 250 yards to get to the 1,000. And New Orleans is the 3rd week. It's juicy as hell for all 3 of these. So he just has to stay healthy. I think that's the thing. And he could get there. He had the blow-up game, which is what he needed. Interesting enough for these running backs, I will just say, Rachaad White is averaging more points per game than Bucky Irving because Rachaad White missed 1 game. Bucky Irving did not. But they're like 2 points away on the season. Like it's Bucky Irving's RB16, Rachaad White's RB9. Yeah, like Rachaad White has just been like kind of a thorn in Bucky's side. But since Bucky took over, he's been really good. This just seems like a 1-game thing. I wouldn't worry about too much for him. I think he's going to be fine. For the Chargers, we talked about Herbert a little bit ago. This was not a great game for Herbert. He was fine, but it's just a little disappointing. Not the best for this offense. Tampa Bay's defense came to play, and to your point, 0 for 6 third down. They only had 6 third downs. That's crazy. Like you should have more opportunities on third. Like it's just that means they either got outdone quickly or turnovers and all that fun stuff. So this Lab McConkey was good. We talked about playing him. QJ had 10 targets, 5 receptions. If someone started Stone Smokestar, he was fine, 5 for 50. Like it's just kind of one of those games where they just got it really got out of hand. This happens.
I think it was Ryan Heath. It was the thread that you posted. In that thread, it said that 0 for 6 on third downs for the entire game, which is ridiculous. But only 2 other teams this season have had 5 third downs only in a game or fewer. And the Chargers had 6. So no one expected this against the Buccaneers. I don't know what the hell they did or what black magic they put on the Chargers. And I think the Chargers were the home team as well. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but clearly Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal are not the answer in this backfield. We were questioning them in the offseason. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, what is happening here in this? They need somebody else. Hassan Haskins didn't even show up to this game to play. Josh Palmer isn't getting it done. It's Lad McConkey, nobody else. Stone Smart looks like a decent future play, but we need a running back in this game that can stay healthy on this team. They need to invest in the position off season. I recommend free agency, although the draft draft a guy.
Yes,
why not?
Just draft somebody.
Because this offensive line is so sweet, but they need a wide receiver, right? So you need to go ahead and add to this team as much as possible. But 40 points to the Bucs is also tough on defense. So just a rough game all around. Herbert will have better games.
Yeah, the crazy thing is Kamani Vidal's snap share the last 2 weeks has been above 50, 53 and 67%. Just not seeing that many touches or opportunities. Gus Edwards has just been in the 27. So if I'm going with any running back, it's going to be Kamani Vidal, but it's just they're not featuring him as far as touches. He's on the field a lot, but you get Denver and New England. That's New England's good. Denver is not a fun matchup. I don't really want to fire up any Chargers besides Lad McConkey. Matt McConkey's good. We got to bring Herbert down, unfortunately, too. It's just, rough run out for them in the championship game. You could probably fire these guys up. It's just,
And before we move on to the last game, we just have to give Quentin Johnson his flowers since he dropped all those balls. He's still been looking pretty good, and 5 receptions on 10 targets for 45 and a touchdown. He seems to get roughly 45 yards and a touchdown every single game. In fact, in his last 7 games, he's caught a touchdown in 5 of them. So being completely and utterly fantasy relevant for you as a wide receiver 2 most weeks. It's been absolutely crazy for him. He might be a viable guy going forward, but we still need to see more somehow from Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, he's got 8 touchdowns on 34 receptions. We're not living in the range of the MVS and those guys where they were seeing touchdowns, but it's well over expectation of what you would expect in his role. Yes. But he's always been a big play guy, so that's kind of what he brings to the table. All right, let's go to the most depressing game that I really don't want to spend too much time on because, let's talk about Green Bay and Josh Jacobs. It's interesting enough, back in 2022, Josh Jacobs put up 48 fantasy points against the Seattle Seahawks. If anyone remembers, he put up 300 total yards in the game for the Raiders. It was a bloodbath. It started out that way. He had 20 points in the first quarter almost. It didn't really do much after that. But Yeah, the Green Bay Packers look like one of the better teams in the NFL. The problem for the Seahawks is clearly up front, the line. They cannot do anything. Like, their line is such a deterrent for them. You saw it with Sam Howell coming in this game. But yeah, Jordan Love was good. He did enough. Josh Jacobs was awesome in this game. He's been fantastic since, like, what is it? Since the bye. He hasn't gone below 20 points in a game. He's been that guy carrying teams. Gets New Orleans, you're going to fire him up. Minnesota is going to be a little bit more interesting, but Josh Jacobs has been great. The wide receiver room, we were hoping for Jaden Reed. He got 6 targets in this game. Like, it's kind of been super up or down. Romeo Doubs got the touchdown, but this is the entire like season for these guys. They're all just kind of all over the place. There is no true wide receiver one on this team. So it's Love, it's Jacobs. I don't know what else you want to do. Like, baby Dobbs.
Disagree. There is a wide receiver one on this team. It's Romeo Doubs. I know he doesn't always get there in targets, but he's used consistently more often than Jaden Reed, and 2 touchdowns in this game. He just gets home all the time. Should Jaden Reed earn more targets week in and week out? Yes. Does he? No, because when Romeo Doubs is healthy, Jordan Love looks to and throws to Romeo Doubs. It doesn't matter how covered he is. He throws it up to him. He throws him slants when he's blanketed, and he throws it to him in the red zone consistently. So once Romeo Doubs came back, Tucker Kraft stopped being a consistent thing with a bunch of targets. Jaden Reed has been boom bust. So Romeo Doubs is the wide receiver one, and I hate that. Because it's not like he's miles above these guys in terms of the number of targets that he get, but because he's consistently used in the red zone and because he scores touchdowns more often than not, he really is the guy that you need to have in this wide receiver room, and that upsets me and all of my Jaden Reed bags.
Yeah, like, he's not a high-end targeter or something. Like, he's the guy that's always on the field. Like, that's the one thing he's always been. And this was my issue with the Dontavian Wicks breakout. I was like, dude, Romeo Doubs is gonna be on the field a lot. And then Dontavian Wicks did get the run out, and then it just blew it. So it did not work out for him. But yeah, to your point, like, Dobbs is on the field. He's going to be that guy doing that all the time. Another 80% of the time on the field, that's what he does. It's just
crazy.
Once again, he's not a high-end targeter. They don't have one of those guys on the roster, which leads to these things where it's like Jaden Reed's like the wide receiver 19 on the season. Romeo Doubs is he's like 54 because he's dealt with some injuries. On a per-game basis, he's been – I need to look it up. I don't have it on me, so it should show it. But the problem with the sleeper on the website just does not show it. So I need to look it up. So give me one second. I'll pull it up as we're looking through this. Like with Josh. Oh yeah, go ahead.
As you pull it up, Josh Jacobs, 26 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown, just 3.6 a carry. But we talk about this getting home on volume. And to your point that you made earlier, they fed the crap out of him in the first and second half. Every single play on that first drive was a Josh Jacobs. Either you're screening it to him, or you're dumping it to him, or you're handing him the ball. And he got there. Those first scripted plays, all those scripted plays were going to Josh Jacobs. If there's one thing that name of the head coach failing me right now in Green Bay,
LaFleur.
Yep. If there's one thing that Matt LaFleur loves to do, it's run the football. It didn't matter that Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback in his first or even second year, at least first year. It doesn't matter that Jordan Love is his quarterback and the bevy of wide receiver weapons here. He loves to run the football, and Josh Jacobs is his workhorse. Chris Brooks is out there. Emmanuel Wilson is out there. It doesn't matter. They got 4 combined carries. Josh Jacobs, 26 carries. You are riding him to a fantasy championship. If you have him, congratulations.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he's been great. Now the championship matchup against Minnesota is going to be difficult. Yeah, that's the one that worries me a little bit. But like, you're kind of just like, whatever, man. Like, you're playing. You still have to fire him up because the volume's going to be there. So you just go with it. Yeah, like the Packers. Like, I'm looking on fantasy points data. No one's above the 20% target share. Like, they're all kind of in that range. Points per game basis. Jaden Reed's at 12 point. Where is he? 12.8. And PPR. Romeo Doubs is 10.3. And then you go down a little ways, Christian Watson, 7.9. So they're all kind of in this range. 7.9. Yeah, like, Dobbs is going to be on the field, and he's had some blow-up games this week. He's had a 10-target game. He's had an 8-target game. It's just kind of been up or down. Now you get New Orleans, and also you get Minnesota, teams that just give up a ton of fantasy points wide receivers. True. Both of these guys could be involved in this week. We'll see how high it is, but it's just really hard to rank either one of these guys inside the top 30, unfortunately, just because it is what it is. I think he's much a better NFL wide receiver. And you talked about Matt Harmon earlier. He's talked about, like, he's seen a lot more, like, steps forward from Romeo Doubs because, like, before they called him like a replacement level NFL. He's like, yeah, I was wrong. Like, he's definitely a quality NFL wide receiver. That's why he went off in the playoffs last year, because Jordan Love's clearly trust him. Yeah, the Seahawks. Okay. Yeah, JSN, yes, is also he's fantastic. He's the wide receiver one right now. I don't know what we do with DK Metcalf, to tell you the truth. Zach Charbonnet saw the volume. Like, it's just this offense got behind and it was so defunct early on. And Geno Smith left with an injury. The thing about Geno Smith did not get sacked one. He got sacked 3 times in this game. Sam Howell comes in, mop up opportunity, gets sacked 4 times in the end of the game, just to show you how bad Sam Howell is pocket management. It's tough, unfortunately. They have Minnesota, Chicago, and the Rams to close out the season. They're going to have to probably win 2 of these games to win that division. I don't know if it's going to happen. They have a shot because the defense is good enough. It keeps them in games, but yeah, they just need more from the offense, man. Like, you can't have games like this where you just get blown out. It's just, it's what it is. It's unfortunate.
For real. But, they are 8-6. They're right there in the thick of the playoff hunt. But Mike McDonald says, quote, Geno's knee appears to be, quote, intact structurally. That's not a great quote from your head coach. Like, he's, awesome. But, we need to go out and win games and win this damn division. And, with an intact knee, that's helpful. But you also need to be able to kind of move around a little bit. Minnesota, Chicago, the Rams, like you said. I mean, they have to win these games, especially against the Rams. But they have to be in it at that point to beat the Rams, who seems to be their only, challenger to that throne at the moment. It's going to be rough. With Sam Howell, they're not going to win any of those games. 0.
Yeah. Sam Howell, your season's over. Just wrap it up. Call it. See you next year. Geno gives you a shot. That's the thing with Geno. And I know people, there's a lot of Seattle fans frustrated with Geno. And I'm like, y'all don't understand how much worse it can get if you don't have Geno Smith as your quarterback. That's the thing. He's carrying this offensive line. He's doing it. And obviously he makes some mistakes, but, quarterbacks do that. We got a couple questions here. Let's get to before we get out of here. Jamie, congrats on that decision. The 203 is a fantastic pick for that. Not only did that, you got James Conner on top of it too. So I don't know. Did this person just hate James Conner? Was my thought process? Because I don't know why they would give you a second on top for Hubbard, but you know what? Congrats to you on winning that. You might win a championship with him. So well done on that deal. Oscar, 33 points low. Yeah, that'll do it to you. Almond around Connor. You have Hawkinson and Minnesota defense.
Okay.
You can pick up Falcons defense against Ritter, which is interesting. How are you leaning on these defenses? Which one would you prefer? They are playing the game today. Why am I blanking? I just framed for my face.
There's 2 games.
They're playing Chicago. Yeah, I know. I'm like, who's the team? It's Chicago. They're playing Chicago. Atlanta's playing Vegas, and Vegas has Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, obviously I want to play Ritter. With my fantasy defense. So yeah, I'll pick up the Falcons defense. They have a pass rush all of a sudden. Minnesota's defense hasn't been great, and Caleb Williams has proven that he's decent enough to throw the football around the yard, which is what you can do on Minnesota. And they don't have any running backs healthy. So, I'm going to go Falcons defense here for the miracle win.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of 2 good options. The thing about the Minnesota Vikings defense is they create a kind of turnovers and they create sacks. So I have them slightly above them. But yeah, I think if you want to shoot the ceiling shot with going up against Desmond Ritter, you could do that. We've seen the Falcons or the Vikings from a fantasy perspective. It has not been bad. It's been pretty solid. So yeah, it's up or down. I would just go whichever one you have more confidence in because they're very close in rankings and projections. They're both top 6 options this week. If you had them, you're starting them. The fact you have an option between 2 of them, there's not much of a difference for them. I just think your point, Jeremy, Falcons defense has come on. The Vikings defense has kind of been good all season. They're gonna bottle up the running game. They're not gonna do anything with DeAndre Swift. It's really gonna be basically Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams have to show. And last week they were abysmal. So they can do that again. I think it works really well. So good luck with that, Oscar. I wish you luck. Hopefully you win your week. Yeah. Stone hands. Him and the Xavier Leggett can you have the little group chats where they, talk about guys not able to catch the ball. And, they start a little circle chat and they get more people involved.
Not exactly the same tier at the moment, but yeah, that was one bad game from QJ about 3 weeks ago. So
yeah, that's just it always reminds me of speaking of the replacements movie, the guy that had Butterfingers where he could just catch anything. Just what it is.
But he didn't straight up lose the game like Xavier Leggett did against the best team in football by just dropping a touchdown pass. So
yeah,
give the edge
QJ's
to
season last year. QJ's season last year was about as bad as it can get from a first round pick. Xavier Leggett is bored. Oh, he was actually first round pick, wasn't he? He was the last pick of the first round.
He's like Terrace Marshall, Jonathan Mingo. Oh wait, there's a pattern with these guys.
Weird, they like that prototype. Yeah. They see DK Metcalf for the Seahawks. They're we're going to chase that prototype. Problem is, there is no DK Metcalf prototype. That's not a prototype you should. Or AJ Brown. It's Yeah, you buy all these guys that have like the rushing. It's just, I don't know, man. Hopefully they figure it out. They bring in some quality NFL wide receivers. It's weird that offenses don't have good wide receivers. That's strange how that works out, right? Like
they need that stick from the replacements.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Coat the hands in it.
Slide it on there.
Jerry Rice used to use it. Don't be afraid of it. Get it in there. You might get banned from the league, but whatever. At least you'll catch them all.
I always think of that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he's like, puts it. And then, of course, what was it? Hot Shots. Right, where it's Charlie Sheen like dipping his stuff in like caramel and all this stuff. Getting ready.
Yeah, that's so good. Gotta love the '80s movies, man. It's good stuff like Bloodsport stuff. It's out of control. All right. On that note, we're gonna call it a day. Good luck on your guys' 2 Monday Night Football games. I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope y'all win this matchup again in the semifinals.
Go win.
Tomorrow we'll be doing waiver wires. It's not really much on waivers, to tell you the truth, but we've seen a bunch of guys go down this week, which is opening up roles for other guys. So just pick up every freaking running back that has a pulse. Somebody's going to find the field. That's what you got to do. Like, that's the key to success. Case in point, League Chase Barkley. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up. We'll see you tomorrow on the Waiver Wire Show. So for myself, for Jeremy, for SC and Aaron, we are out of here. Enjoy your Monday Football. We will see y'all tomorrow.